Hello, listeners. You're with myself, Stephen.
And myself, Thomas.
And we'll be talking today about humidity and why it's essential that you're measuring humidity and keeping the levels right throughout the stages of growth and flower. So, Thomas, talking about humidity today, why do you think it's so important? What's the point of even measuring humidity? And
what is humidity?
Shall I go first on humidity?
Let's tell people what humidity actually is.
Well, we'll put it into layman's terms to start off with before we get into more technical details. So, on those really hot days when you've been on your summer holiday, and no matter what you do to yourself, you just can't cool down, and it's really hot. Well, that's when the levels of humidity are really high. So what happens is the sweat that we produce can't evaporate into the air because the air around us is already saturated with water. So that's a high humidity, and we find it really uncomfortable because we can't cool ourselves down.
Well, what I'm going to say is, just to let everybody know, humidity, it's moisture level in the air.
Yeah.
So first of all, it's water vapor that's in the air.
Yeah. And low humidity, that would be, again, we're back to the summer holiday, when it's really hot, same heat as it was yesterday, but for some reason you feel a lot cooler. Like, you can stand this heat. You don't have to jump in the pool every 2 or 3 seconds because it's so hot. The reason is because the sweat that you're producing can evaporate out into the atmosphere, therefore cooling the body, and you're able to stay out in the heat a little bit longer. Now, some of you might be thinking, yeah, but I'm not on my summer holidays. I'm looking at my plants, and I'm in my grow room. What's that got to do with my plants? Well, it's quite funny, actually. Plants have the same sort of feelings towards humidity. So if it's too low a humidity, it's going to lose lots of moisture, and it's not good for the plants. And if you've got too high humidity in your flowering stages, then you're likely to get fungal infections and botrytis,
powdery
mildew. So what we're going to talk about is how to prevent getting those, but also how to stimulate the best growth out of your plant in its different stages.
Okay, well, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to talk briefly on how do we measure humidity.
Yeah.
So, first of all, see that little white thing that you have in your grow room? Well, some people do. If you haven't, get your ass down to the grow shop and buy one for £10, please. It's called a thermo/hygrometer, and basically it's a white plastic panel with 2 screens on. Some of them have like a wire probe at the end. Now, what you'll normally find, the ones with the wire probe at the end have a screen on the bottom saying out. Now, that measures the temperature on the probe. That's why it says out, because it's an outside temperature from outside the instrument. So what you can use that probe for, you can put it in your mouth if you want to and check the temperature of your mouth and see if it works. Yeah, you can do that, but it's not actually for that. It's for putting it into the media that you're using, i.e., or maybe a water tank, whatever, soil, cocoa, pebbles, whatever, and it's just to basically constantly ascertain the temperature within the root zone. That's what that one's for. Then you have another screen on there which has temperature on there and another one saying RH next to it. That is relative humidity. So that's telling you how much moisture is in the air. Now, the reason why you have to pay attention to relative humidity is for the simple reason Stephen said before, because different humidity through different growth stages have different effects, and they will be bad effects if you don't pay attention. Humidity is equally as important as temperature. So for all you brain dead people who don't know what humidity is, how on earth can you have a really good grow environment if you're not able or capable of monitoring your relative humidity? So I really need to stress to you guys and girls that are listening that if you're not monitoring humidity, you are basically hindering your grow environment and hindering your yields and quality of produce, because humidity is very, very important. So you need to measure it, and you need to use a basic thermohygrometer to measure it. If you haven't got one, pop into the store, or any store, just go and get one, because it's really important. I'm not bothered if you don't buy from NPK, but if you haven't got one, you're a crap grower. So stop being a crap grower and become a good cultivator and buy yourself a thermohygrometer.
So we'll start with the very early stages of a plant's life.
Yeah.
Well, there's two stages that are considered early. You can either grow from seed, or you can, if you've got a really good plant that produces for you year in, year out, you would likely take cuttings from that plant and propagate them. So for a seed, the best humidity for seed is around 60%. But to root new cuttings, that's around 90%. So there's a difference there. So if you're from seed, you want to keep your propagation at around 60% humidity. Reason being, if it's too high, you're going to get dampen off, and your seeds just aren't going to pop.
You'll get white slices, you get mould straight away, and they'll just die. Yeah, just die.
But for cuttings, they need to have the energy to produce new roots. So you'll dip them in your rooting solution and then put them into your propagator, and that's where you want your humidity to be around 90%. If those two conditions are right, you're going to have really fast root growth. You can have the seed is going to be popping through its shell very quickly, and then we can move on to the next stage of a plant's life.
A good sign of the correct humidity in a propagator is obviously to see mist on the inside of the propagator. It's to see it all steamed up. If it's not steamed up, it's not producing any humidity. So you're going to have some issues then.
Yeah, it's a good top tip, that. Make sure that there's steam popping up on the inside of your propagator lid. And also wipe off the steam once a day. Take the lid off, give it a little clean out, and let the environment rehumidify itself. That's another tip that for the production of cuttings and for seedlings. Next is the vegetative stages growth, weeks 1 through 2, however long you're going to veg for.
Yeah.
70%.
Yeah, 70%. Nice high humidity. Reason for this, it's going to make the plants really grow. If you don't have this humidity, and you will notice your plant is not growing, it's just standing still and not doing anything.
It's not dying.
No,
but it's just
not growing either. So a lot of people, they're confused. They can't understand why this plant doesn't seem to be doing anything. It seems to be taking weeks and weeks and ages. Yep, that's correct, because your climate is incorrect and you need to adjust it.
And what do most people do when they don't see plant growth? They overwater.
Yeah.
So they add to the problems that they've already got, low humidity, and they're going to add more and more water to the medium that they're using. What that's going to create is a low oxygen environment within the root zone. So then you're going to start to see yellow leaves. A small plant with yellow leaves.
Yellow plants, heavy pots, water dripping out the bottom of them. Oh, if I had a pound for everyone who come in the shop with that problem. Wow.
And you know what else people do after that? Because they don't listen to what the plant's saying to them. So they've got low humidity, overwatering, produces a short yellow plant. They think, it must be deficient. So they add more nutrients, and then you start to get nutrient burn. So you're adding on to all these problems, and you know what? It could have all been prevented with just the right humidity. And the right humidity is going to buy yourself a £10 thermometer hygrometer, and if you can't get the humidity up, which is reasonable, some people just can't get up to 70%, 2 free tips for you, because we start with the free first. Turn off any clip fans that you've got, because they're going to remove the humidity in your tent or your room. And also your extraction fan, try and dim that down, or if you can, turn it off during the early stages.
Warning, there's a warning with that top tip of switching the extraction fan off. Be warned, if you switch your extraction fan off and you have multiple lights in a closed room, you are going to burn every plant to a crisp. Top tip, if you have a small group of plants which are young and are in a large room, you could switch off your extraction and put one light on, which would increase the humidity, i.e. because the fan extractor is not removing your humidity that you're trying to build.
That's a good clarification, I think.
Be warned though, and when switching off any extraction, that it has issues to deal with that, i.e. backlog of wasted air, unwanted smells, increasing temperature. So be warned, but it is a top tip.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. That is another top tip on top of my top tip.
What about another top tip?
A top tip.
Okay, top tip. Small plants, stand-up fans in the room, 4 of them in each corner, blowing at small plants.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think about that, Stephen?
Gale Force 10.
Gale Force tent on small little babies
Yeah.
who are trying to build up a climate, who are trying to create some humidity, and then what does somebody do? They come in with the big fan, stick it right at the plant, pointing at it, and what does it do? It blows all of the microclimate away from the plant. So, but then your plant will stand up straight. Wow. It just won't grow. If your plant is maybe 5, 6, 7 inches tall or around that size, a small plant still, basically, that's what I'm trying to say, you could get a Coke bottle, 2-litre Coke bottle, cut the base off it and place it over the top, and it makes a propagator. So it allows you to create a better humidity within the plant. And once the plant grows fully within inside that bottle, you can then remove that and off it goes then.
Yeah, it's happy and it's big enough to control its own environment.
Yeah.
So there's recap on those 3 tips. Take any clip fans that are currently on, turn them off.
Or stand-up fans.
Yeah, or stand-up fans. The extraction that you're using, dim it down. That's the best thing I can ask you to do, is dim down your extraction fan. If you can't do that, turn it off. But bear in mind what Thomas mentioned before about high heat and the issues that come with turning your extraction fan off.
I have another little something I want to add. Also, we've been selling a lot more of the humidifiers.
Yeah.
We've got a specific product in the shop. Really good product. Not very good if you've got a very, very big space, maybe a 10 metre by 10 metre space. But if you've got grow tents, if you're in grow tents, we supply a humidifier and it holds about 6 litres of water.
And if it's on constantly, it takes about 24 hours. If it's on full whack, it takes 24 hours for it to use all its 6
Well, to be
litres.
honest, what I found to do, Stephen, is just use one of them, the cheap plug and grow timers, the good ones, put it on, and it set it at a 15-minute interval every 2 hours.
Yeah.
So it was constantly keeping the humidity
Just keep
high,
it up there,
yeah,
but not too high.
and it weren't running out. It was probably lasting 3 days then.
Yeah.
And the plants were thriving on it. They
just love it, don't
Just
they?
loved it. They just loved the humidity.
And that's really the most you'll ever have to spend to get your humidity environment right is your £10 for your thermometer hygrometer. And these humidifiers, which are £50, you'll know that they're the ones that we're on about because they have a see-through water container with a white bottom. And what it does is it doesn't produce steam. It's a plate at the bottom that vibrates so quickly, the particles of water mist up and are released into the room, but it's cool. You can just hold your hand over it and just produces water vapour in your hand, so it's not going to add any unwanted heat to your room. So that's why I like it.
If you haven't got £50 to spend out on one of these electrical humidifiers, at NPK we always like to give you some top tips. There's some simple things that you can maybe implement. A lot of people sometimes they get a large towel, like a beach towel or something, or a couple of beach towels, and what they'll do, they'll saturate them in water and maybe get a tray and then have a stand so they can put this towel over the stand so it will drip into the tray, so there's a lot more water vapour in the air. Another one that I've seen a heater, an oil heater, and I've seen them with it on a very low setting, so it's not really hot, it's not really emitting much heat, but what it's doing is they're putting a wet towel over it, Stephen, and it's drying the towel out very, very slowly, but then it's putting the vapour into the air.
Yeah.
Clever idea.
Yeah.
Cost effective if you've got a simple, when I say heater, I mean oil-filled radiator. So don't start trying to build a bonfire in your grow room and throw towels on it. You've got to be safe with certain things that you do, and always be careful when you're playing around with heat and heaters, electricity and water. That's why there is some top tips, but always be careful as well.
Make sure that the heaters that you use and the heaters that we're talking about, we know them to be waterproof heaters, greenhouse heaters.
Yeah.
If you're going to just go and buy a standard heater, just be careful because you're adding water, heat and electricity. It's not a great combination.
No, you can end up with a new vision on your house then, burnt to the ground.
So just use the common sense when it's coming to those two things.
If you're stuck and you don't know, give us a call and we'll help you out.
Yeah, of course we would. We're going to move on to, before we get into the technical information, we're going to move then into the flowering stages of a plant's life. Do we keep the humidity at 70% during flower?
No.
Why not?
Because our plants will rot and die,
Yeah.
and end up in a big heap of mould on the floor with no produce whatsoever.
Exactly.
And so, once again, that thing called humidity, what you all forgot about, this is how key it is, because you have to change it from one extreme to another, i.e., in the growth stage, you want it 70%, and then as soon as we move into the flower stage, we want it
40, 50%. Yeah.
40. Yeah. I like it on 40.
Yeah, it's a nice number, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a nice one.
So what this does is it produces a nice environment, and to dip our toe into the technical side of it, it means that the plant is losing water through to its environment, to its drier environment, and this is where, for the technical growers, this is our vapor pressure deficit, but we won't stray too much into that. But what happens is the plant loses water to the environment because of its low humidity, and that allows the roots to, by capillary action, suck up more water and more nutrients, which is what you want during the flowering stages. You want, if it's a flowering plant that you're growing and you want to produce fruit, then you're going to want to get all those nutrients and all that water to those fruiting sites, so you're producing bigger fruits, tastier, so you get more sugars to those fruits. So that's why it's key. Low humidity in flower, so that you produce, so through capillary action, the flowers and the fruits are getting more water, more nutrients, and you're going to get a better harvest yield at the end of it. That's essentially why we drop humidity, as well as to prevent botrytis and any fungal pathogens that can appear in the later stages of a plant's life.
Excellent.
Keywords: transpiration. So I'm going to just talk on 4 words that you might come across when you do further research into humidity, and so you're not completely lost. I'm going to touch on 4 words. First one is
transpiration.
Yeah. So this is the rate at which the plant expels and absorbs moisture, and it helps to cool the plant and allows the flow of water, nutrients and minerals through the plant's system, through its body. What's the next one?
Stomata.
Yeah. They're the pores that regulate moisture within the plant, and they help to prevent it from dramatic changes in moisture. So when it's too dry, so this again, we're going to touch on why it's essential to control humidity. When it's too dry, the plant knows what its environment it's in, so it will close up its stomata. When that happens, well, just try it yourself. Pinch your nose and cover your mouth and go for a run. And see how long you can go for a run for. That's essentially what happens when stomata close. The plant shuts itself down to conserve water, and therefore no growth occurs, and it can't breathe in its CO2, it can't expel its waste gases. So that's a negative.
You know what the funny thing about all this is, Stephen? It just sounds like we're talking about the human body here. So it shows you that, for those growers, not the cultivators, for those growers who don't understand the plant, and aren't really bothered or interested, how a million miles away they are from ever giving a plant exactly what it needs, basically, and producing really well from various plants and whatever. Because a lot of people or growers don't understand that growing plants is really a science, and plants, as we were talking about transpiration, we transpire every time we go to the gym or we go for a run or we do some exercise and whatever. And this is the point that we're continuously trying to hit home, because we have customers who are saying, oh, all these bottles, they do 1,000,001 different things, but I don't think they do anything. They're just a gimmick. It's not. There's that many different elements and components to hydroponics and growing and a plant's life, a cell structure, all of these things that we continuously going on and on and on about. Eventually will hit home and make you realise that the understanding of a plant, looking towards your plant and understanding what it needs and when it needs it, will make you a cultivator, a very successful cultivator, rather than just a novice grower who just is very naive and doesn't believe that a plant's life is actually biological and also
a living organism.
A living organism, yeah.
So you said it's a science there, and it's also an art, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's a science and art combined into one thoroughly enjoyable hobby, or a business for some people. So the next technical term is saturation. So that's when a gas or a space holds the maximum water vapor possible at a given temperature. It's said to be saturated. So if you add extra water to a saturated gas or saturated area and its temperature decreases, some of the water vapor will condense, and this is what we see as condensation. The water droplets on grass in the morning. That's what that is. That's what I'm talking about there. And the last one, the important one, is relative humidity. So when you talk about humidity, you'll see on your little thermometer, hygrometer, RH as a percentage. Well, that RH stands for relative humidity, and that's the ratio of actual water vapor content to the saturated water vapor content at a certain temperature and pressure, which is expressed as a percentage. Now that's a bit technical, but
for all of you who've just fell asleep and got lost there, I'll just recap it in layman's terms. Basically, what he's just said is really important. So all of the basic stuff that we told you at the beginning of the podcast, bloody listen to and take note of. Because if you don't, you're going to be fucking goosed.
So if I was to make that relative humidity part in those technical terms a bit simpler, I want to touch on as well why it's so important to know your temperature, because what the relative part means is that the humidity is relative to whatever temperature is. So if you've got a room that's 28 degrees, then that can hold quite a lot of water vapour. As soon as that temperature drops, then the energy within the room drops, and so the room can't hold any more water vapour, so it condenses and becomes water droplets on your plant. So there's something that you've got to watch out for. Your room is sitting at 28 degrees with your lights on, and you've got a nice humidity of about 60-70% when you're in veg. Those lights go off, the relative humidity in your room is going to increase because it's relative to that temperature, and what you'll find is the humidity will go up, you get all water condensed on the inside of your tent, and that's not a good thing, because that's where your mould and your pathogens are going to increase. So it's important, just as well as getting your humidity right, to not go too high because to like your 90s and 100% humidity, because you're going to get pathogens and nasty stuff.
So stick to the levels that we've suggested, and everything will be fine.
Okay, so one of the last points that I'd like to say is the key point to remember is that dry air will remove water from the leaves quicker than the roots can deliver it.
And what else will dry air do? Spore on spider mite.
Oh yeah,
spider mite love dry air.
So all these little conditions, see, all this little podcast is on humidity, one tiny little aspect in the whole environment, the holistic environment. And you may think, if you've never learned about humidity before, you don't really know much about it. Trust us when we say we're giving you this information for free. We're not trying to make any money from this. Take attention to humidity, because it's one of the key aspects of your environmental control. And when you get your head around it, you're gonna be ringing us up and thanking us, because it's gonna make a massive difference to your whole.
It's a real game changer, to say the least.
Right, I've got 3 points to make before we wind it up. Point number 1: when the lights turn off, the temperature will drop and the relative humidity will rise. So it's wise to keep your extraction running after the lights are off, or in maybe invest in some heaters so that when the temperature drop isn't too drastic. And this prevents the water from depositing on the plants and walls, and like we said before, creating a breeding ground for pathogens. So that is important. I wanted to get that in twice. Number 2 is when the lights ignite, the temperature increases and the relative humidity will drop. So a good investment, as we talked about before, is the humidifier, and this negates the drop. And like Thomas pointed out, you can have that timed. So when the lights come on, time your humidifier to come on at maybe 15-minute intervals. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And lastly, point number 3 is keep those humidity levels in check, high in veg and low in flower. And there's me 3 points that I'd like to hit home for this podcast. Would you like to add anything, Thomas?
Not really. I think we've covered a lot of the main things. Well, we've covered everything that's important to humidity. Just a quick recap. Humidity is really, really, really important. It's equally as important as having lights over your plants or pots to hold your media. That's how important humidity is. If you don't understand it, come into the store and we'll explain it a bit more in detail. Or if you can't understand how we explain the thermohygrostats, come into the shop and we'll show you some simple little versions of it and show you how to get your head around the piece of equipment. If there's any of the boxes that you think that we've ticked that you think, they've mentioned something that's going on in my grow room or in my space, and you want to get some more information on it, come down and see us once again or give us a call.
Okay, excellent. If the podcast went over your head a little bit and you don't really want to listen to it all over again, there was an article written in issue 8 of Garden Culture.
Yeah.
And let me just double check which page it's on. It was the article with the Great Hydro Survey on. Good article, that one. And it's on page 57. So, what is humidity? And don't sweat it. That was written by me.
Yeah.
So
Very good article. Check it out.
It goes into a little bit more in depth. So we try not to go too technical, because we can realise we can be boring bastards sometimes. Or I can anyway. Yeah. I can be a boring
we
bastard.
Know Steve can.
So if you've just fell asleep, wake up and go to page 57 of issue 8. And if you haven't got the magazine, you can go online and check it out. Every magazine is online as well. Happy?
Happy. That's us.
Well, I'm happy because my humidity's right.
Yeah, I'm happy my humidity's right. So that's NPK and humidity.
Yeah, thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week. And myself and Thomas, we're going to be. It's his favourite. He's been itching to do this one.
Been dying for it.
Pest and disease.
Pest and disease.
So tune in next week, and we'll be back with pest and disease.
Thank you.
See you soon.